3, 2, 1, action.
Spooky.
Well, there you go. That was just, I don't know if I have anything to do with the class today, but I just a way to get started. I'm sure there might be.
Wonderful.
So, good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're at in the U.S. And I got to be careful how I raise my watch to see how good I am at time, because it thinks I want to speak to Siri. What I'm going to do today is I've got a couple things in mind that I'm going to teach. I'm going to do a little recap on something, and then I'm going to move on to some new somethings. The reason why I'm going to do the recap is we've taught this a couple times in some of the workshops. I taught it a little bit in another workshop for actually the EX owners, and it's interesting because I still get questions about this. So I'm going to do a sort of a slight recap, and then move onward into some other goodies that these instruments have. Now, keep in mind, this class is one of many. There's so much to these instruments. I could teach a class once a week if I wanted, and for 6 months straight, and there's still going to be stuff that we won't even touch. It'd be the tip of the iceberg as far as what the instruments do. So what I'm going to do, Sean, do you happen to have that preset info thing? I have it, but if you have it, it's a little easier.
I have it somewhere, yeah.
Okay. While you're looking at it, we did a class recently, and this was kind of spotlighted a couple times. And during the class, we talked about the presets. So we all have presets. We love these presets. And so when you pull up this little screen here, all right, so is that visible enough? Now, I've sent this out. So in case you're wondering what this is, this chart, by the way, because some of the questions I had were good, and I think there was one thing we failed to mention on this. This chart is referring to what's called rhythm presets. Okay? So you have your general presets, you have bank presets, and you have category presets, and then there's rhythm presets. And what a rhythm preset is, in short, and I know you already all know this, but there's some newer to these types of instruments. And what the rhythm preset is it basically is a setup or a preset, a setup that sets up the instrument for that style of music you've chosen. So if you've chosen big band and you use rhythm preset, you get an arrangement for that style. Now, once upon a time, this map was used as a roadmap, if you will, to what those setups are going to do. So, an example, if I put up a style here, here's one called Satin Lady, okay? Or I do one that I really love playing here. This one is called, where did it go? It went somewhere. There it is. It's called Smooth Foxtrot. So it's kind of like a big band flavor with featuring the instrumentation of Benny Goodman. So as I put on the introduction, so on the rhythm preset, when you first turn it on, your rhythm preset, some of you have one that says normal, and some of you have one that says rhythm preset. They're both the same. It gives you what I call a general setup for that style of music. So in this case, I have it transposed. Let me put it back here. Okay, so that's nice. So that's your general setup. Now, what's going to happen is, in some of the instruments, it actually says this in the screen. When I push rhythm preset 1 and 2, it's going to do exactly what it says on the screen there. It's going to take this arrangement, and when I push number 1, it's going to give me a little more of an easy arrangement. Notice the band. Notice what happens to the band when I go to number 1. It kind of is more tamed. And I go to number 2, it just means that. It's just a little bit more. And as I go through the presets, those presets are going to give you the sound types that you see on the screen. So if you push organ rhythm preset, number 3, it's going to give you an organ type setting. Or if you go to number 4, you get string or strum. If you go to number 5, you get bells and whistle. And so forth. 6 is solo, 7. And those are the types of sounds. Now, for those of you who have the A series models, you'll notice that in the screen, and I don't know that I can pull this up on the screen here. Let's see if I can get close to this. Now, what I'm going to do, oh, I'm squishing myself. Hold on. Did that make it better or worse? Oh, that's not too bad.
It looks good.
I can't fit here now because it's right in front. So when you push your custom 4 button, you'll notice that the screen doesn't say easy, a little more, or anything like that. It gives you the specific sound that's on the top and the bottom. So that's a very nicely improved feature, because as I'm playing, if you ever see us looking into the organ, a lot of people think we're doing this when we're playing. We're kind of going in. They think we're actually getting into the music, Well, we're not. We're just looking to see the screen and then sometimes the glare because we're reading what's there. So this is a handy feature. All right. Now, did you find that chart, Sean?
The preset information one? The same one
Yes.
that you put up?
Yes.
Yeah, I have that.
Okay, good, because I can't fit here and reach over. So I'm going to have you pull that up in just a second. All right. Here's something I've taught a few of the classes. A lot of people have this and they don't realize this. Now, I'm on what's called a rhythm preset normal. Now, I guess a show of hands, and we'll do, when I say show of hands, as many as we could see, maybe you could see in the screen, raise your hand. How many of you use this one called organ rhythm preset? Can you see their hands raising?
Yeah, we got about 4 or 5 of them. 6, 7, 8.
6,
They're
7.
all.
We've got 67 people on, and so far you've seen about 6 or 7 hands. This is a commonly misunderstood button because it does what it says and it does more. When I push organ rhythm preset on, and I'm going to say what I'm about to teach you is about 90% accurate. Because when you push an organ rhythm preset, keep in mind you're getting an additional 11 presets for every style. So if you have an instrument that has 200 styles, that's 220. If you have 286, that's do the math. That's actually 2,000, sorry. 11 times 216 is over 2,200 presets. If you have an instrument like a Patriot or a Symphony, you've got 200 and I forget how many styles, 60 times 11. That's a lot of presets. It's a commonly misunderstood one because a lot of times people say, I only use organ rhythm preset when I want some other organ sounds. That's not always true. So if you go pull up that screen, Sean, take a look at the screen. This roadmap also ties into organ rhythm preset. So if I've got that same smooth foxtrot on, I have organ rhythm preset on, I'm going to push the number 3, for example. That one is kind of an easy one because it says organ, and you're going to get just that. So that's, yeah, it's plain and simple. But what does number 4 say? It says string and strum. Well, I have organ rhythm preset on. Organ rhythm preset will give me an organ sound on number 4, but it's going to be a blend of organ and strings. If I put on number 5, I'm still going to get an organ sound because I'm on rhythm preset, but it'll be an organ sound with some type of bell sound. And so forth and so forth. So when you have organ rhythm preset on and you use those 10 presets, you're going to get an organ sound for each preset, but a lot of times it'll give you a blend of what you see. So organ number 8 is going to be an organ sound, but it may be an organ sound with a piano. Let's see. And I was right. Now, lastly, on organ rhythm preset, if you put on organ rhythm preset and you use those 10 presets, the bottom right keyboard are all orchestral sounds. And anyone want to guess what type of orchestral sounds you get when you use it? It's going to be what you see on the screen. So I'm going to put on a whole nother rhythm here, one of my favorite styles. And it's one of the Latin categories. And I'm going to put on, it's called, where is it? The Latin Big Band. There it is. Oops. I know it's in here somewhere. I just got to look. Or Tito's Big Band, that's nice too. So I'm going to put on the Tito's Big Band. So I'm going to put on Tito's Big Band. And then I'm going to use the, oh no, there it is, Latin Big Band. So here's what you normally get on rhythm preset. So you get these beautiful sounds on normal rhythm preset. All right. Now if I put on organ rhythm preset, the same thing applies to the top keyboard, but now on the bottom, watch what happens. I get all these other orchestral sounds that follow that map. So did you notice all those sounds weren't organ sounds? They were, let me turn the light back on, I'm scaring myself. They were sounds that were from the orchestral in your solo section. So organ rhythm preset is one of those. If you have that button on your instrument, organ rhythm preset is going to give you an additional 11 setups for the top and the bottom keyboard, and that bottom right keyboard is going to, I'm going to say 90% of the time, follow the roadmap that you see up there. Okay? Now, I have emailed this out numerous times, so check your emails, and if you see it, how did I label it in the email, Sean? Preset information?
I think so, yeah. Rhythm preset.
It's just called preset information. So if you have the screen that tells you specifically the sound, that's great. But sometimes I have that little roadmap nearby. Now, I've done it for years, so I know, but it's good to have. Now, I'm going to share with you one last thing on this topic that some people know, some don't, and then I'm going to move on to the next topic. And this is, I will tell you, this is, not all the models have this, okay? So what I want you to do is if you have this button, I need you to contact your PA, and if you're not sure, you can ask. All right? Some of the models have this feature, some don't, and here's how you can tell. You just listen. So what I have, I'm going to put back Smooth Foxtrot. Okay? Now listen closely. I'm going to put on the introduction. All right, so I changed my view of my screen so I could see you guys. Can you hear the band members there? Just shake your head. If you have your video on, of course. You can hear, you heard some saxophones, and what else was in there, Sean? Trumpets, horns, drums.
Yeah, definitely the clarinet there.
You could hear the clarinet. You hear all that? Now, I'm going to look at you again. I'm going to put on the same introduction and tell me if it sounds the same to you or different. And I'll ask how do I ask this and get them to see this here? Does it sound the same? And I guess I'll just ask if it sounds the same. It should sound different. The notes are played the same, but listen to the instrumentation. Ooh, let me do that again. Let me go back to the way it was. Ooh, let me do it one more time this way. Okay. Could you hear the difference between the two?
Oh, yeah.
Now, you're probably thinking, how did you do that? Now, some of you, I know some of you are experts at this. You probably know the answer, but there's some that don't. On some of the models, not all of them, this is your little assignment to do. If you don't have this feature, because Lowry's done it on some models they didn't. If you don't have this feature, just call me afterwards and I'll help you find it. But for those of you who do have it, this is very clever. You have an organ rhythm preset button here. For those of you who have that button. Again, a lot of the models have it and it's not impacted. When you have it what's called in the 0 position preset, any rhythm that you play, any rhythm that you select, as long as rhythm preset 0 and no numbers are selected, the background of that rhythm will change to an organ background playing the same notes that it normally does. So here's what you heard. Organ rhythm preset 0. And this will apply to any style. So for example, here's one that I do it a lot, and people will come up and say, what style did you use? And I tell them I use the opener style, the one that's been around since the early 90s. And they go, I've used that, but it never sounds like that. And then I tell them what I did, and they're surprised. So here's opener. It's usually really big and bright with the big brass sound. Same rhythm, organ rhythm, preset 0. So if you notice, there's a different, and it's different organ sounds. Everyone is unique to the style. So if I put on, here's a style that everybody, virtually everyone, anyone I've spoken to, they love this style. It's called Unforgotten, and it's beautiful as it is. Then I'd play the song. Now I put on organ rhythm preset. Same thing. Now listen. And then you'd play your song. So let me just take a look, everybody. Could you hear the difference?
Yeah, I saw a lot of smiles too.
Now,
it's a neat
here's the catch. This is where people go, oh. Because sometimes I'll do that, and I actually really like that. Like, I like the way that sounded. Organ rhythm preset. Listen. I mean, that's just kind of cute. And then I might play my song. Okay, well that's nice. Listen to the band. Even the fill-ins. But the minute I push a preset, it goes away. Now, don't get me wrong, that sounds nice, but those organ players in the background go away. Sean, what do we do? What do we do? Is there a way to fix that?
I don't know, Robert. You tell me.
Yes, that's why I'm the expert here, right? Sean knows the answer to this. You all have a feature on your instrument. If you're an SU owner or an A series owners, you all have a feature on your instrument somewhere. Some are located right on the dash or some are within the screen. That's called an accompaniment lock. So we have these locks. And anytime you find a way, a style or something you've done that you like, and you want to lock that in. So if I want this organ rhythm preset to lock, and I don't want that to change, what I do is I push my lock button. I'm going to turn the lights off again so you could see this. I think you could see it there. On this instrument here, and again, you just got to look for it. A lot of the models that have this cosmetic design, it's here. Some of them have it over here. You push lock, and if you can see the screen there, 4 buttons came up. One of them is called Accompaniment Lock. And when you press Accompaniment Lock, now that band, that accompaniment, that entire accompaniment is going to remain locked until I turn it off. Now watch as I press the presets. Listen to the background. The band does not change. Here's what you need to know. If you lock it like that and you go to another rhythm, you have to, in some cases, relock it, go back to the organ rhythm preset, and then lock it again. It'll remain locked as long as you put it in there. So then when you switch to a different rhythm, sometimes it's best to just unlock it. Let me turn the lights back on. Switch to the other style. And then when you use organ rhythm preset 0, you can do that. So, before I go on, are there any questions about the rhythm presets that I've discussed in the panel before I go on to my next topic? Any hand raises? Cecilia, go ahead.
Oh, you're muted still, Cecilia.
I can't hear you, Cecilia.
Yeah, okay, got it. Yeah, sorry, but I had a phone call that I had to take and I missed the lock thing that you just did.
Well, then you're going to have to watch the video because I just spent a lot of time on that, dear. I'm sorry.
I had to take a call that was important.
I'm sorry. Well, that took me a little while, so we're going to have to, I'm going to record it, so, or it is recording. So you'll have to go back and watch it on the video. But any questions about the rhythm presets that I've done and the roadmap that I put up there? All right. Now, so moving on. Just want to make sure I don't see any hands raised. Moving on. So you have rhythm presets. There's something that some of the models have. This is a question a lot of people have asked, depending on the instrument you have. Rhythm preset, when it originally was introduced, it was introduced with a built-in feature, if you will, called zero position. And a lot of you know this because it does it for you. So the minute you put on a rhythm style, any style I push, let me turn off my lock so I don't have any of that on. Anytime you put on a rhythm preset, a rhythm style, and you put on rhythm preset and you don't push a number, you're on what's called zero position. Okay? So you have 10 presets plus the 0, that's 11. So anytime you hear any of us talking about zero position or we count out 10 buttons, we say 11. Now I know some of you know that because you've had your instruments a while, but there's some people that are a little newer to that concept. And so keep in mind that zero position counts as an extra preset. Having said that, some of the models, when you just power it up, if I just put on the instrument and I power it up to its power up setting, some of the models, when you push A, for example, or big band or what have you, you'll notice, now what I'm going to do is put my presets back to the factory settings here. You're going to notice that on some of the model, depending on your model, you may have this or you may not. If you push on A, like right now when I just power it up, let me bring it up to the power up setting here. All right, so when it first comes on, all of the SUs and the A series models come up to this default 16 and 4 foot organ flute. And then which is a pretty sound. Some of the models, if you push A, B, C, D, E, or theater, country, if you push those, the sound does not change, okay? In order to get that change, you have to push 1, 2, 3, and so forth. And the reason I'm telling you this is just good for you to know what to expect, because I've had a lot of times we'll teach a class and we'll say, oh, push D0, and some models have it, some don't, okay? And the best way to do this, to check and see if you have it, is just turn on your instrument when you have time, just play a note or two, and then just push, don't press any number, push one, A, B, C, D, E, or just one of them. And if the sound changes, you then have an instrument that has what's called a zero position on your banks and your categories. And typically, what happens is when you push one of those are some of the new sounds that those instruments have that that look for, that we say. So for example, if I push D's with no number, this sound is now this. It's called what's called tremolo strings. Now tremolo strings, if you ever seen artists like Marco Mendez and Jim Vogelman or some of these performers, a lot of times they'll do this thing called this tremolo string effect with their fingers. And then they try to teach that to everybody and say, oh, it's pretty easy. You just take some notes and you just wiggle your fingers as fast as you can. Okay? And you don't have to worry about hitting right notes. And then everybody goes home and they start to do it and they do this. And it doesn't sound right. Lowry put on D0 those tremolo strings, so when you hold the notes, it does it for you automatically. Or if I push E, it gives me these automatically, gives me these new voices. And the way those sounds are, if you press the note and hold it a little harder. So you can go through and find all these new settings. Now, if you go to your more category, some of you have this page where you have jazz and nostalgic. These are where we find all these new sounds. So if you go to brass, you get these. There's an actual sound called the plunger trumpet. Now, how do I know that, you ask? Because I read it in the screen over here. Okay? So for those of you who have this little window here, this is a little different than the preset information. So if you look over here, I don't know if that can be seen or not. Can that be seen? Kinda. You see there's words in there? This tells me specifically the sound that's in the orchestrals and the solos. So if you have this screen information here, this here will just tell me, it says 5 plungers and 1 low. Well, we don't know what that is. Then I look here and it tells me exactly. So if you're not using that screen, I would highly encourage you to use that. So back to the preset here. So getting my cord all tangled up here. Here we go. So as you go,
somebody's asking what instrument you're playing.
You mean this here or the sound?
Yeah, that there.
Oh, because I'm playing a plunger trumpet.
No, the instrument that you're using.
Oh, this thing
organ.
Right here, the organ, this virtual orchestra, is called the symphony.
Aha.
Okay, so you could, as many of you know, the symphony was using the same platform as like cosmetically as the Patriots and the Sterling, so that's why it looks similar. If you have a Liberty, this also has that screen in there. Now, a lot of, and I'll come back to that in a minute, but you go to the more, you have your category if you just touch one, there's a new sound in there. So if I touch jazz, it gives me a what they call the trumpet shake. In that case, it gives me a harmony, and then at the bottom, and it gives me this sound. And now that's a kind of a different saxophone, isn't it? Sounds different. And I know, and I look in the screen, and it says brass shake with the girl. Okay, that means so it kind of gives me an idea. It's GRWL. Is that even a word? Grrl. What does that mean, Sean? Help me.
I think it means growl.
Growl, you're right, because I'm looking in the window here, and it tells me sax, tenor, growl. So point is that this screen is great for those quick, this is the type of sound you're going to get. And then on some of the models in the A series, it tells you specifically the type of sound, specifically the type. In other words, it may say brass, sax. But it won't always tell you exactly what it is, because these combinations here that Bill Curry does are pretty intricate. And if you're ever curious, just look in the window there and it'll tell you. Now, to take that a step further, for those of you who have this window, it's kind of hard to read. Let me see if I can. I'm going to have my trusty, I have a lighting crew here. You hit the light switch. I pay him big bucks to do my lighting. Maybe the words aren't going to come out that good on this. Okay. So maybe it's hard to read with my camera. I should have had my other camera. Let me get a little closer. Go ahead and turn the lights on, lighting crew person. All right. Well, I don't know how easy it'll be to see, but in the screen it says ORC 1, ORC 2, Solo 1, Solo 2. And then over here it says page 2, upper, lower pedal, golden harp. And here's what this is telling me. It's telling me that this sound here, which says brass section 1, is in ORC 1. Sax, tenor, growl is in number 2. Solo 1, trumpet shake is in solo 1, trumpet another and solo 2, and then they do the combinations. So what are these buttons? There's a button here that says display 2. Surprisingly, not many people press this button. But if you press it, these words will change, and I don't know if you'll be able to see it. The words change, and now it says trumpet shake, piano, bass, acoustic, and vibes. And here's what it's telling me. On the upper, there's a trumpet shake. Now, where is that upper, you ask? That upper button right there. You'd be surprised how this button gets ignored. That's another upper sound that we can use. So that sound is right there. It says piano grand, 9-foot grand. It says lower. So in that lower genius, on the left side over here, take you on a little ride. That sound is what is in the window. And then it says pedal. These are genius sounds, by the way. Okay, these are all genius. Pedal genius. So if you have a pedal genius button over there, it's giving you, telling you what's programmed in there. And then there's golden harp. It's telling me that's in the golden harp. There's the genius. Now, why would I use this versus just pressing the genius buttons? Well, here's why. Sometimes these genius buttons are selected or not selected. And there's always something programmed in a genius. And like these two buttons here, this is programmed in a certain way. You see them flashing. That means one of them's on the bottom, one's on the top, etc., etc. The minute I press one of those to see what's there, I've sort of messed up the combination that was programmed. Now, if you wanted to get back, you either have to turn on and off that preset again or push the right two buttons. So a lot of times what I like to do when I just want to see exactly what they have set up to see how they got that sound, I'll just go and I look in the screen and I'll just display that information. So before I go on to the next button over there, any questions about what I'm talking about right now? Raise your hand, wave your hand.
I don't see any so far.
No? Paulette, you look like you're musically smarter already. I give myself a pat on the back. So this all ties into the presets. This all ties into the sounds you have. Now, some people love presets, and sometimes they like to pick your own. Don't we like to experiment once in a while too? Right? Yeah. And when you're dealing with an instrument like this, some of you have the panel where you have pianos, guitars, clarinets, saxophones on the dash. And that's well and good, but there's a couple of ways that you can select some of these sounds. First of all, this panel changed, but you didn't lose those quick pick instruments. So depending on the instrument you had, if you've had a Stardust or a Prestige or a Royale, Imperial, just to name a few, if you remember, and if those of you have it, you have on the panel there was a piano, guitar, you know, you had some, what Larry classified as quick pick instruments. The instruments that people use the most, most of the time. Almost everybody uses a piano and vibes. So over here, there's a button that's labeled Quick Picks. And when you select it, press it, should I say, a window pops up. I might need my lighting crew again here. I sent my lighting crew away, and now he's back. Boy, he's fast. Let me move my... So when I selected Quick Picks, I don't know if you can see that there. Let me put my speaker view back on. I'm going to turn it off. You kind of see the screen change there? And those now give me those pianos and those accordions and those vibes. And then anytime you press one of those and you press orchestral, it automatically puts it in the screen there. And you'll notice it changed it here. If I go to the next page, I want the Louis trumpet, for example. I just push and hit it, and it automatically puts it in there. Go to the next page, and there's another page of sounds. You have 3 pages of sounds, and these actually introduced when this option came about, they added a few of the new sounds in there. So they're just quick ways of doing that. But wait, there's another way that you can search for your sounds. Let me see if I can get your attention here. Look in the screen here. Let me change this. My lighting crew has to stay here. No, I need it dark so they can see the screen. This is another one of those, try it out, get with your PAs to see if your instrument does it. But you all have a button that says Keypad. Okay? When you touch it, you get this number keypad there. Okay? You can see that okay still? Sean, does that still look okay on that side?
What, the keypad?
Yeah, you can see the
Yeah.
screen? Okay.
I see it.
All right. So some of you have, everybody has that option right there. Now pay very close attention so there's no misunderstandings. That keypad, if you have the list of sounds, if you go in your owner's manual, there's a list of what's called Genius Sounds. And basically a Genius Sound list is a list of instruments, saxophones, pianos, guitars, vibraphones, xylophone, you name it. Every sound that your instrument has. And every one of those has a number attached to it. So when you press a number and you hit a Genius button, what'll happen is it'll automatically program that in there. So if, for example, if you had the list up, I know this one because I turned it on a lot, 232. And then when I press Genius, let's see if you could see it on the screen there. I don't know if you can read it, but it says brass. So it's a fast way of accessing those sounds. So everybody that has a touchscreen has this keypad. If you go in your owner's manual and you look up the Genius sound list, they all have a number attached to it. That's what that's for. So anytime I pick a number and I press the keypad, 1, for example, is piano. I just know that one by heart. Now, some of you, depending on your instrument, has this little option up here that says alphabet. When you touch alphabet, the letters change. Can you see the letters there? Or the numbers change to the letters. Ooh, look at fancy
what it looks like
Sean.
there.
Sean, you are so fancy.
Just so you can see a little bit closer there. That's what he's looking at right here.
Yeah. So when you press the alphabet, it switches over to that other screen that says, it brings up the A, B, C, D, E, F, and so forth. Now, some of you are familiar with this because it's used most of the time, people that have this feature, when I want to find a song setup like Moonlight Serenade, and I know it's in the M's. M's is kind of in the middle, and that takes a while to scroll up through all those. You can press M on the screen and hit Song Setup, and it brings you right to the M's. And then you don't have to scroll through about 200 of them before you get to Moonlight Serenade. Well, that's nice. Likewise, let me bring the keypad up again. If I want a style, a rhythm style that I want to find, and I heard someone say, play harmonicats with this song. And sometimes we know where it's at, sometimes we don't. You just type the letter, and then you hit style list. I'm on H, and then what'll happen is it brings me all to the rhythms with the H, and then I scroll in, and then boom, it's right there. Okay? But wait. There's more. Some of the models, some people know this, some don't, so I like to explain just in case. Some of the models have it, so if you have this alphabet keypad, if you ever wanted to find a sound like a guitar or a saxophone or of some sort, some of you have the ability to find a sound alphabetically as well. So, for example, let's say, Sean, give me an instrument that I need to look for.
Kazoo, Robert.
Kazoo. So I'm going to touch the letter K, and then if you just hit a Genius button, it automatically brings you to the Ks, and then you just scroll, and it happens to be the second one on the list. I love my guitar sounds, so I'm going to press G for guitar, hit a Genius sound, and it brings me right to the Gs, and the happens to be a guitar, and there's many guitars, and then I can just scroll within all of the guitars. If I want a saxophone, that's an S, so I type in S and hit Genius, and then I scroll through and find all the S's, and there's all sorts of saxophones. It's just a fast way to get to some of those sounds. Thank you, lighting crew. Everybody, just give it a big round of applause for Justin over there with his patriotic mask. He's my lighting crew. So, before I adjourn for today, I've talked about rhythm presets, the preset information, how that works. I talked about zero position presets, and how you get that with the categories and the banks. What else did I talk? Talked about a lot of stuff today. Sometimes you can't just shut me up. I just keep talking. Then I talked about, what else, Sean?
The Genius sounds on the right side and the
Yeah, I was just trying to
keypad.
keep it in order in my head. So the Genius sounds and how you can view it on the screen, your quick picks, and then I went into how to find sounds alphabetically. And I got one more little thing on the quick picks before we adjourn. But before I do we have any questions about anything that I've discussed in that last part from the Genius sounds or the alphabetical search?
I
Any
see
questions?
Helen raising her hand there. I ask
Who's
you
raising
to
their
unmute
hand?
yourself. You may be able to unmute yourself, Helen.
Helen? Go ahead, Helen.
It should say to unmute yourself on the screen there. Well, we can move on for now. Maybe she'll get it in just a
Hold on.
minute here.
One more time, Helen. Give it a shot.
Nope.
No? I tried. Okay. Anybody else? Paulette, you raised your hand. Raise your hand if you're sure. Okay. I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, it's really neat the way. Thank you for the class. Now, when you're finding that instrument, you want to play saxophone, then you want to go back to your say big band sound, and you don't want to feature the saxophone anymore. Do you just hit your big band button again? How do you?
Well, there's a couple ways to do that, and it depends. And it depends on what setting you're on. So, if you have a rhythm preset, let's say I put on a big band and I'm using Duke's Blues or Chicago Swing, and I got rhythm preset, and it sets up something for me, okay? Because that's what it does. And then you decide, you know what? I'm going to take and I'm going to find a different sound. I'm going to go to keypad. I'm going to hit guitar like Robert said. I'm going to put that there and turn this stuff, and then I got. Okay, and then you go, okay, I like that, but I want that other sound back. We have a couple ways to get it back. Turn off and turn back to rhythm back on, and it puts it back to that setting. Or just turn off and on the rhythm preset. Because if you start off with rhythm preset, and it gives you a setup, and you want to change something from there, just remember that you can always turn off and turn back on the preset that you were on last, and it'll just reset it. Here's the thing that I have to caution you on. A lot of times we push buttons and we experiment, and we get a sound we don't like. Does that happen to some of you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I see a lot of heads shaking. But sometimes we press some buttons and we get a sound we do like. And then if you do what I just said, turn it off and turn it back on, you lose that setup. That's another class, but then you're going to want to learn to save it on your presets, because that way you don't lose it. The last thing you need to have happen is you find a sound you really like, and then you turn something on or off, and then you lose it, and then you can't get it back. So that's definitely a topic that I always encourage students. And I'm going to give you the simple version right now, but if you ever find a sound that you like, just remember this. Press memorize a letter, a number, then memorize.
Okay.
Memorize a letter, a number, memorize. That's the fast way. Now, there's a couple more things with that I won't go into detail today, because then this way I have another class to teach down the road. But that's the fast way. So if you've got a sound you really like and you go, oh, I like that guitar and I like what I did with the strings, memorize A1 and then memorize. And then you find another one, oh, wow, memorize A2, save it on a different number. And then next time you come back, if you just push A1 or A2, wherever you saved it, that sound will be there. Okay?
Okay.
Helen, did you figure it out? I think you're unmuted, Helen.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm wondering, when you push the Genus button, does that come up as a solo sound or an orchestra sound? Or can you have either?
The answer is yes. What instrument do you have?
I have the Sterling.
Okay, so this is a tricky one, and I'll try to explain it the best I can. This could be a 15-minute topic, so I'll give you the Reader's Digest version. You have 2 red buttons and 2 blue buttons. Now, I'm recording this, so this will be a great little thing for you to go back and watch at least this segment. It's pretty cut and dry that when you put on a red button, okay, there's nothing on now, but then when I put on a red button and I have upper on, the reds are orchestral sounds. Okay, so if any of these red buttons are selected, they're orchestral. Now, you won't actually hear the sound until you have this upper, I'm going to spotlight it here so when you guys go back. So it won't actually work. You won't actually hear it. Where am I? Okay. You won't actually hear it until this upper on is selected. Okay. So you see there's 2 sounds there. All right. Now, let me go to the solo for a minute. This is where it might stump you a little bit. If you have the upper on or lower right on in the solo and you push one of the blue buttons, it is exactly that. It's a solo instrument. In this case, it's a tenor sax. So solo meaning 1 note. See, I can't play more than 1 note. Okay? Now, again, this is something you might want to go back and listen and watch, because this sometimes a lot of people say, well, I have a solo sound on, but it's playing more than 1 note. Here's why it may be. If I have a blue solo button selected, and this applies to, I think, virtually anybody that has a touchscreen model. If I have a blue solo sound selected, in other words, it says tenor, breathy saxes in solo 2. Depending, if it's by itself and there's no other red button selected, if I put on a red upper button on or a red lower, depending on where you put it, it will now become an orchestral sound, meaning it'll play more than 1 note. You see that? Or hear that? Now watch, I'm going to put on the upper solo on. Now watch what happens. There's only 1 note. So believe it or not, these solo buttons can also become orchestral sounds, depending on how you have it set. So that's why I said the answer was yes, because it depends on how you have it set. Now here's what happens. Sometimes people see it like this and they go, I don't understand. Now watch this. This is the extra little thing that'll stump you, might stump you. I'm going to put on, it says here that the orchestral 2, I'm going to turn all this stuff, is a trombone. It's set up as an orchestral, so if I play more than 1 note, you hear more than 1 sound. I'm going to turn that off and put on the tenor breathy sax. Well, that's more than 1 note. Now what I'm going to do is put those 2 together. Because none of the upper right is not on, this sound, which happens to be a saxophone and a trombone, is going to be considered orchestral. So there's 3 saxes playing and there's 3 trombones playing, even though it's selected as solo because this isn't on. Now, I'm going to make it a little even trickier. I'm going to put the lower right on. And notice what happens. It went away. So as long as these aren't selected and you have these 2 pressed, it will work as an orchestral. Now, most of the time, the instrument isn't set up that way. It's usually, once you have one of these, it's a solo. And once you have one of these are always orchestral. So hopefully that answered your question. Hopefully it was understandable. But this would be a good thing to go back and watch in that segment a few times of what I just said. Because sometimes I'll explain that to some people and the light bulb goes off, and sometimes it kind of makes you think a little bit. Even when I answer that question, I have to think of how to explain it too, so it makes sense, because I want to make sure it's not confusing. Okay. Well, very good. Any other questions? No? Okay. Well, I'm going to finish off with a number here as an experiment, because I said I was going to show you one other thing that I didn't mention, but I'm going to do it as an experiment. So I don't know if it's going to sound good, but I'm going to choose a sound that I'm pretty safe on using. All right. Before I do, just a couple quick announcements. So as this Wednesday and Thursday, as a recap, just as a reminder, Wednesday and Thursday classes, I do not send the link out for those classes to the masses. I send them out to people who register. So if you've been attending that class regularly, or if you've responded to me, you will get that email. I usually send it now 3 hours prior, and the reason I'm doing that is because I have sent out a lot of emails already. I'm going to send that out 3 hours prior to the class time. So if you're normally on the Wednesday class, you'll get it tomorrow, 3 hours prior to the class start time, and Thursday as well. Those will continue with the same instruction on both days, whatever's taught, and then the following week the same thing, et cetera, et cetera. The rest of the schedule that I've been kind of putting up as a product tips, take a look at that, because if I have, like, for example, I don't remember the date, maybe Sean can look it up while I'm talking about it, but I have an SU series product tips. Anything that I teach on the SU is going to apply to the A series as well. I'm just going to teach it on an SU model for all those SU series.
And that's going to be on the 23rd at 10 a.m.
It's a 23rd. It's going to be a different link. I have a different link. So if you want to attend that and you see that email, the minute you click on that link, it'll take you to the Zoom page like you're going to patch into the class. The class won't happen, of course, until the time of, but you're automatically registered when it's done that way. All right. So another thing is this Friday we have our Zoom musical performance is going to be with Mr. Joe Fontesha from Florida. So he'll be at the corporate office playing, and if you've never seen or heard Joe, he's a lot of fun, and he's plays a lot of great music, and what's neat about that is the music's totally different than some of the other performers. Next week, starting on Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Arizona, 12:30, we're opening up a class called Conductor Magic. And this class is really for those, I'm just starting learning to playing for the first time. You know, that Mary Ann song that we teach, all those students learning that. And all we ask is that you continue, you're going to hear from me for the rest of my life, is that you spread the word, tell your friends, if they don't have an instrument in their home, tell them they need to learn to play and make music. And we have a beginner's classes that we're going to start doing online, even if they don't have an instrument. This is a great way to explore the classes because, and for a limited time, we're going to offer those classes to our referrals free of charge. And they can sit and watch and see how we teach. It doesn't cost anything, and it's going to take about 45 minutes of their time. And they can sit on the class. All they need to do is send me an email, or if you have us get in touch with them, we can talk to them, or send me, or send your local store, say so-and-so would like to try that class out. It's totally free of charge. Right now, we're just trying to keep that, because of doing the things a little differently, we're trying to open up the doors to as many people to learn, even if they don't have an instrument. Some people actually have an instrument with black and white keys on it. You have that? Then they can learn to play in those classes. If you don't have any friends, this is a good opportunity to go make one so you can tell them. Go to learn to make music. So spread the word on that. And then also, as you see opportunities come from Fletcher Music Centers, I encourage you to get with your PAs about those, because we do have some phenomenal opportunities that we're doing throughout this new way of educating our students, both in store and online. This instrument, as an example, someone asked what instrument this was. This symphony, but it was funny because we had a bunch of these not too long ago. Now we're down to literally 2 in the entire Fletcher Music Centers. We have 1 in Florida and 1 in Arizona. So if it's something that you're curious about, get with your PAs. We can tell you more about that. Last but not least, on the keeping you informed, I am working towards, and my goal is by July, may take a little longer, is working with the person that is in charge of our website. And I'm working on trying to get the schedule of all the classes that we do with descriptions on our website, so that we have some people that got a little confused because there's an EX series, there's an EY series, there's an EZ series, and the Z series can go here. And then you see the emails, and we had some people that are clicking on the wrong one. So we're working on hopefully get to the point where that schedule will be online on our website, on FletcherMusic.com, of course. So stay tuned in. I'll be telling you about it as we get closer. Actually in about 15 minutes, I'm meeting with him on Zoom to talk about what I expect and so forth. And we're going to work towards that, so at least you have a little bit more. It'll be easier for you to know when things are happening too. So stay tuned in on that. Again, our Facebook page, like the Facebook page, because I do post stuff there from time to time. Sometimes I post the classes. YouTube channel, it's a great way to stay informed. Every day that I record these things at night when I get home, because I have fast internet speed at home, I upload the video and I put it up to our YouTube channel. So tonight, really late your time if you're in Florida, it'll be posted and you can go back on and look for it, and I have different playlists. So we're just trying to make it so that if you have a question about today or something that you didn't quite catch, you can go back and read that part. Or this last thing that I talked about, for example, was a good way to kind of look back at that. So I'm going to leave you with those announcements, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish off with a little bit of just a classic style that I love here. It's called Franken the Count, but I'm going to do it a little bit differently. You have the ability in your quick picks, and this may you go back to our YouTube video of this. I mentioned something about the quick picks. Some people know this, some don't. So if you don't, you have the ability to take a quick pick and very quickly put it into your band, your Genie and your Orchestra Plus. So if you listen to this, let's put on the intro. Okay, so that's how that sounds. What you have the ability to do, if you turn off Orchestra Plus, you'll notice there's a guitar sound playing. All right, so if you heard that, there was a nice jazz guitar. And then the Orchestra Plus is this. It's all the other band members, and if you touch your screen, it'll tell you saxes and flutes and brasses and strings. There's a very quick way that if you want, it's just a lot of fun you can do, and the beauty is if you turn the button off and turn it back on, it'll very quickly set it back to the way it was. What I'm going to do is keep the Genie, which is the guitar, and that Orchestra Plus, I'm going to change it to one instrument, so all the musicians are another instrument. I had guitar, and I think for this example, I'll use piano. It's a pretty safe sound. So here's what I do. I'm going to press quick picks. Oh, let me get my sound man. Or lighting person, lighting crew. He's got to run. This is how he said he wanted to start working out. So I'm going to push quick picks. And if you can see it in the screen there, there's all the sounds. And then I'm just going to go back to the default screen. Piano is the first one. Now all I'm going to do is press piano and then hit Orchestra Plus. Now watch what happens to the background. So now I have to turn it back on. I turned it off and on. So now in the Orchestra Plus, if you can kind of see it in the screen, maybe you can't. you'll see it automatically put piano in all of those sounds. Now before it had, what did I say, brass and flutes and strings and all. Now it's a piano. So now that background very quickly is just a guitar and a piano sound. Now if you remember, if you put something on that you like and you don't want it to change, reach up and hit your accompaniment lock, and then it's set in there. So here we go. Lights on, please. And if you notice at the end there, all the intros and endings was done with just the piano and the guitar, because I very quickly put that in there. So just some extra little fun things today. So with that said, as we say our farewells, he'll give you the ability to unmute if you have any questions. Actually, they say food, applause is food for a performer, so you can unmute yourself and give me a round of applause. Let's give it up to me, everybody. Wait. Yeah, the crowd goes wild. Woo! So tonight, sometime tonight, between 5 and 7, between 5 and 7. Usually I go home after I feed my daughter, we do all that, and then I go to my music room, and then I bring up my laptop after that, and then I work on all the emails and uploading stuff. So I'm going to say after 6 p.m. Arizona or 9 p.m. Florida, this will be uploaded on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch and listen, and if you have any questions, you know, that it's always very helpful. So with that said, I want to thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed today's class. Stay tuned in on all the stuff that I was telling you, and I hope you learned something today. And then I'm going to send an email to everyone, all the stores, letting them know. I'm going to give them a bullet point outline of here's what I taught today. So if you have any questions about anything that we taught and it's just not clear, call your PA at your local store and just say, hey, by the way, he talked about this, but give me about an hour, because I've got a meeting here and I'm going to send it out to the stores first. So don't call them just yet.
Will you have the same class next week?
No, next week we have different workshops and stuff going on. So take a look at the emails that I've sent out, okay? But we will have the SU series one that Sean said on the 23rd. On the 23rd, it's for the SU. So I'll be teaching, or somebody will be teaching on that model on an SU organ. And if you have an A series instrument, I encourage you to attend.
Okay.
Because it's going to apply. All right. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Let
Robert.
me put the change of view here and do this.
Bye.
Okay. How do you leave class? Leave. Okay.
Bye, Robert.